Anxiety meds are getting out of hand. Every day, 1 in 10 dog owners walking into a vet clinic will come out with a bottle of anxiety meds in their hands. Trazodone and Fluoxetine are prescribed 100 times more often than just 10 years ago, and nothing about the data suggests it's slowing down. But do we ever stop for a moment and ask, what are these medications really doing to our dogs' brains? Anxiety is not just one thing, it's 100 things. Restlessness, hypervigilance, constant vocalization, the inability to shut off, maybe even diarrhea. And as Dr. Anderson points out, it's probably something completely different from what we think it is. More on that later. The point is, anxiety isn't just a small part of our lives anymore. It's a whole culture, now with viral songs. And our dogs are right there in the middle of it. So naturally, we want to fix it. And for many, that starts with medication. One massive study looked at 32 million prescription records collected between 2010 and 2020. Trazodone, a drug you probably never heard of 10 years ago, exploded more than 100 times in prescriptions between 2015 and 2020. Fluoxetine, better known as Prozac, rose 5 times in just 2 years. And these numbers don't even include all the dogs now on multiple different drugs at once. The authors of the study did note that more dogs were being diagnosed with anxiety over the years, but that alone does not explain the massive rise in how quickly and how often these drugs are being prescribed. So what does explain it? A 2020 paper in the field of veterinary behavior practice provided a clue. It states that progress has been made in how psychoactive medications are prescribed. Now it is not uncommon to use 3 drugs on our referred cases to reduce anxiety. So Trazodone and Fluoxetine prescriptions are at the highest rate ever. And combining different drugs to treat anxiety symptoms has also become a common practice. And from my experience, I can say that it is pretty easy to get a prescription for Trazodone. When I moved across the country with my dogs, I asked my vet if she could give me something for the trip, just in case. Without ever meeting my dogs, without ever seeing them in person, I walked out with a bottle of Trazodone. Use as needed. Could that be the reason why the prescription rate has exploded over the last years? Easy and needed? We live in a world of short-term stressors. Moving, travel, fireworks, storms, holidays, and use as needed might turn into use every day, even if Trazodone was never meant for long-term use. Yet, when I ask trainers and owners, that's exactly what's happening. But before we get to that, we need to understand why Trazodone is only recommended for short-term use. Trazodone is what's called a serotonin antagonist and reuptake inhibitor, or SARI. Its strongest effect is blocking certain serotonin receptors on specific neurons. And when those are blocked, the serotonin signals in specific brain areas that normally keep the brain on high alert slow down. Pair that with a sedative effect, and you've got a dog that mellows out. The effects of Trazodone come on quite quickly, within maybe just a few hours. But the behavioral changes that we might observe are not because the dog is less anxious, but because the entire metabolism and arousal has been dialed down. If Trazodone is given for too long, this sedative effect fades, and the anxiety comes right back, which would require the dosage to be increased again and again. That's why Trazodone can act as a short-term bridge to hold things kind of together until the effects of a long-term medication like Fluoxetine can kick in. At least, that's what it's supposed to be used for. But when I asked if Trazodone was used daily and long-term, the answers I got highlight the gap between what might be said in the vet office and reality. Dogs weren't just taking it for fireworks or a long road trip. They were taking it every single day as a long-term strategy to reduce anxiety. Which brings us to fluoxetine, the drug actually designed for long-term use. It's an SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Instead of targeting specific receptors, it goes after the serotonin transporter itself, blocking it strongly and raising serotonin levels across the brain. At first, fluoxetine can actually worsen anxiety symptoms because early dosing tends to boost activating signaling in the brain. But with chronic use, the brain adapts. Networks shift towards lower reactivity, and the prefrontal cortex gains a bit more control over decision-making. Research shows that fluoxetine actually changes brain plasticity even. It strengthens networks that are tied to learning, which explains why the benefits don't show up immediately. This kind of rewiring in the brain takes time. But if you stick to it, it seems like the ideal solution to your dog's anxiety. But with serotonin influencing not just mood, but almost every part of the brain, and the brain being an interconnected network of millions of neurons processing thousands of signals at any given moment, do we really know how our dogs feel on drugs? Or are there unintended side effects that creep in over time? A meta-analysis of 18 studies sheds light on the long-term use of fluoxetine. It found that in adolescent rodents, higher doses of fluoxetine were linked to more anxiety-like behaviors. And research even suggests age-dependent side effects. Young rats showed signs of increased despair compared to the adult control group. Which brings me back to the bigger picture. Anxiety isn't just one thing. And if we expect one drug targeting one molecule to fix a complicated problem, we see reversing effects of brain-changing drugs like fluoxetine, which then segues into the long-term use of sedative, fast-acting drugs like Trazodone. Dr. David Anderson at Caltech is one of the leading voices in this field, calling for change in how we see anxiety.
Part of the reason for this is that we have an oversimplified and increasingly outmoded view of the biological basis of psychiatric disorders. This view is conditioned by the fact that many of the drugs that are prescribed to treat these disorders, like Prozac, act by globally changing brain chemistry. But that can't be the answer because these drugs actually don't work all that well.
His work reframes anxiety and depression not as chemical imbalances, but as network problems. He argues it's not about serotonin being too high or too low. It's about local brain circuits being out of balance, stress circuits overactive, regulators like the prefrontal cortex too quiet. Can we really say with confidence that anxiety meds are the most effective way to influence those circuits that are misfiring? Or have we put training and behavioral work on the back burner because the pill promises faster results, quicker relief, and let's be honest, less work? The truth is, the canine body already has tools to build resilience without drugs. Physical exercise, play, and carefully managed stress exposure all release BDNF, endocannabinoids, norepinephrine, dopamine, the very same molecules we're trying to manipulate with medication. Many vets or veterinary behaviorists will prescribe medication together with a behavior modification plan. In my experience, recommended exercises focus too much on rewarding calm behavior and too little on activating the right brain circuits. It feels a bit like chasing the end result of calmness without teaching the dog how to actually get there. Calmness does not rewire the anxious brain, and that can lead to frustration and very slow progress. But drugs act faster and harder. They can change brain chemistry in ways training never will. Sometimes they're the right move, but if there's one thing the numbers don't show, it's this. The dogs who change the most don't change because of medication. They change because they learn to cope. They are active. and they're given a chance to be a dog despite the chaos around them. Resilient isn't magic. It's the boring yet beautiful stuff. It's building a nervous system that can meet stress and come back to center. We owe our dogs more than quiet. We owe them capacity and a commitment to their health beyond the pill. I'm Dr. Melanie, and I'll see you in the next one.